Wild Health is about optimizing you. We use genomics, blood work, biometrics, microbiome assessment, many other tests, and a conversation with you to come up with a full health optimization plan. What's the perfect diet, exercise, and supplement plan for you and only you? The Wild Health podcast is about optimizing all of us. Here we cover the cutting-edge science that gives you the base to be able to apply the personalized plan we give you as a patient. To sign up as a patient, go to wildhealth.com. Or if you're a physician or health coach and you want to learn how to do this for your patients, we're happy to help as well. Wildhealth.com for all the information on becoming a patient or working with us.
All right. What's up, you guys? Thank you for listening to the Wild Health Podcast. As always, this is Erin Faules. I'm one of our doctors here at Wild Health. And I am here with Alexandrea Eliman. She goes by Allie. She's awesome. She is a powerhouse entrepreneur, health advocate, and certified health coach with over 2 decades of experience in building and scaling successful businesses. Today, she leads Alexandria's Simple Pursuit, a wellness brand focused on simplifying holistic health. She is also the creator of the Pursuit of Health documentary series, a media project in progress, where she explores essential themes in wellness, including the benefits of nutrition, movement, mindfulness, and other perspectives. So this is so cool. Allie and I were just like chatting off the record for a while, and I'm like, we need to press record because we just got to talking about everything. We have so much in common. So hopefully it'll be a great conversation for you guys. There's a lot of overlap between stuff that I've already talked about on the podcast. You probably also know me as Erin Donaldson. So there's been a few podcasts through the years on kind of my journey with autoimmunity. And I'm excited to chat with what Allie's experience has been, what kind of some kind of similarities and differences have been, and just get rolling from there. So she is lovely. You guys are going to be excited to get to know her. So I guess I'll just turn it over to you, Allie, if you want to give everybody just a little elevator pitch of what your health journey looked like. I know it's like hard to do in a little short pitch, but just in general, what was your kind of like moment of like, what did you struggle with in terms of health, and what does that look like now for you, or however you want to kind of segue into that, and we can deeper dive a little bit into that story if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And I'm a big fan of what Wild Health is doing and a big fan of how you approach health with your patients. I kind of wish I had found Wild Health when I was younger, but of course, these things really didn't exist. I'm 44 now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a long road to here. But it's great to see that more and more people are approaching health from this more holistic standpoint and can really take the science and apply it in the right way and listen to people, of course. So I'll segue into that with my journey here. So thank you for that introduction. Essentially, I really started having issues with my health when I was younger, much younger. At 17, I was having symptoms of digestive issues that were pretty alarming. And so I mean, just to just lay it out there, I was having blood in my stool. I was having
It's so scary.
yeah, and as a teenager, was like, what is going on? I also had a lot of indigestion, so we did go to see a GI doctor. I had a colonoscopy at age 17, which you can imagine is very young to have
Sure.
something like
Oh,
that.
you're probably in the way I got one when I was young and diagnosed with celiac disease. It was like me and like everybody that was like 50 to 80 in the waiting room getting their colonoscopy. And I'm like, what am I doing here? I remember that when
Very
I was a
strange.
teenager very well.
Oh, yeah. Not something anyone wants to do, period, but let alone as a younger person. So,
Yeah.
went through that and you know what? At that point, I guess this was in like 1997, they just looked and didn't see anything that was alarming. They didn't see polyps or tumors or anything like that. And I don't recall them taking any biopsies. So if I did have something that was chronic going on, they didn't let me know. They just said, "We don't see anything," and they sent me on my way. Okay. There was
Mhm.
no recommendation as to changing my diet. There was actually even
Mhm.
no recommendation on like avoiding gluten at that point. So life went on. I had sort of bouts of this where I wouldn't feel well and I'd be suffering from it. Other also felt at the time, I didn't really put it all together, but I would feel more inflammation throughout my body. Had another colonoscopy at age like 28. Same sort of story. They didn't see anything, and they said, we don't see cancer, so you're on your way. But, I kept trying to see different doctors and explain, like, I don't feel that good, and I can't really put my finger on it. I did all kinds of cleanses. I did candida cleanses. I went to naturopathic doctors. I did Chinese medicine, all this stuff. And although little pieces of each kind of helped, like, I understood a little bit more about what my body was reacting to, it still didn't really solve this problem. And,
Mhm.
many years later, at age, like, 42, I was finally diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and told it was very chronic. It had been going on for a long time, but it took that long and me persisting that
Mhm.
something was going on. The way I look at autoimmune stuff and how I kinda, like, describe it to people, especially if you haven't experienced it, it's like telling your neighbors that you have a bobcat in the backyard and you swear it's there and you're the only one that's seen it. You're like, "I swear there's a bobcat in the backyard." And they're like, "There's no bobcats that live here." And you're like, "I swear." And
Yeah.
for years you do that and people think that you're crazy. And then one day you finally catch this bobcat and you're like, "Look, see, I really did see this thing." But at that point, it's like, you've already gone through all of this, like, craziness to figure it out, right? It's sort of like that with autoimmune stuff. It can be highly elusive. A lot of the labs don't show it. My lab work looked pretty normal. They weren't looking for the right things. So it went
Mhm.
undiagnosed for a really long time. And by the time that I did get the ulcerative colitis diagnosis, there was so much inflammation in my whole body that 2 months after the diagnosis, even when I tried to make some changes don't happen overnight, I ended up in the hospital with intussusception because the inflammation had gotten, I think, so bad. Ulcerative colitis, for those that don't know, is in the lower colon typically. It's in the colon. But my intussusception happened in my small intestines, in your upper digestive tract. But the inflammation to me, I just had so much of it for so long that my body just couldn't take it anymore, and, had to have 13 inches of my intestines removed in a very scary, emergency surgery where I honestly wasn't sure at that point if I was gonna make it out of the hospital because I had been in pain for days and then ignored it because I thought, "Oh, it's probably some stomach bug or something." And by the
Well,
time I
right. I mean, it goes along with the same thing of like you're told nothing's wrong when you know it is. So it's almost like you stop listening to the gut or there becomes kind of a block there. I think for a lot of people that can really happen with that connection to your intuition.
I had literally been to a doctor 2 months prior and brought all of the stuff that I could, lab work and even scans that I paid for myself, and he said, "I'm seeing a whole lot of nothing."
Mhm.
And, to be told that for a long time, even though something is wrong, it does get really exhausting. So, I was hesitant to go to the hospital, and by the time I got there, I was septic, and they said, "This is really bad. We need to operate immediately." And I have 2 young kids, and I was like, I've
Mm.
gotta wake up from this one." So, I was lucky enough to have a really great surgeon, have great care, and I did wake up, and I was in the hospital on fluids for, like, 5 days after that, just recovering and resting, and I decided at that point that I was really ready to dive into my own health and to change career paths a bit. So, I, from the hospital bed, signed up to be a, certified health coach to kinda just start to understand even more about my own health and to get myself on a better path. So that's kind of a
Yeah.
long story, but
Yeah.
kinda
No, it
went
was
all that
perfect.
year's way.
It was perfect. So I had so many questions. My first is what does that timeline look like from the time where you finally got your diagnosis to the intussusception?
It was honestly, I think it was about a 2-month turnaround. Um,
Got it. So
yeah.
your disease got very serious before it was really taken a good hard look at and diagnosed, essentially.
It did, and it wasn't for lack of trying. So
Totally.
I'm not
Totally. That didn't even enter my mind.
Yeah, but I mean, just in general, I mean, for those that are listening who have a lot of issues and with their digestive tract, I think GI doctors, the standard wait time is like 4 months to get in, like 4 to 6 months. Okay, so I had been trying to see a GI doctor and get another colonoscopy, and then in the midst of me being on a wait list in Colorado where we had lived, we moved to Dallas, so I had to start all over again. So even though I was like, "Hey, there's something really wrong here," it took me,
Yeah.
like, another almost a year to get in to see
Yeah.
and get a colonoscopy. So it's
And you were going on decades of not feeling right, correct?
yes,
Yeah.
decades.
And did that just become your normal?
Yes. So now that I know that that's not normal, I know
Yeah.
what it feels like to feel good in my body,
Mhm.
and to not feel inflamed in every part of my being, including my emotional state. Um,
Right.
People, this isn't, I think you talked about this in a past episode, but like there is science now to show that your nervous system, everything is affected by inflammation.
Mhm.
If you have chronic inflammation in the body, pretty good chance that you're not functioning all that well mentally.
Well,
Um,
yeah, because it's
yeah,
bidirectional, right?
yes,
I mean, the inflammation, which if you have got chronic gut inflammation, it's even gonna be, like, more gasoline to that fire because 80% of our immune system lines our gut. So, like, if your gut is the source of the inflammation, then that's going to feed in to affect our neurotransmitters, our serotonin levels, how our mood feels, which is gonna impact the lens of which we view everything, which is then gonna cause further stress and to our nervous system, which is gonna further exacerbate that inflammation. So it's going to be this like positive feedback cycle from both directions. So I know you've lived this, so you know this.
well,
But
I didn't
it's so tricky.
recognize it until more recently.
Yeah,
So, it takes a while.
yeah.
Yeah.
So do you feel like and I know this is kind of personal, but do you feel like growing up from such a young age having this thing that was going on because this is such a common thing. For those of you who haven't listened to me speak before, I have a history of autoimmunity myself. I was diagnosed with lupus in medical school. I work with a ton of patients with autoimmunity. It's become a huge passion of mine. I think it's a really underserved patient population. I realized that firsthand as a patient. Very similar stories to Allie's, all the way around, myself included. Usually it's many years to diagnosis. People start to feel like they're crazy. Like, is there something really going on or not? And then it fuels into this hypervigilance that then exacerbates the issue to begin with. So especially when people start their symptoms so young, because I feel like it's almost formative in a way of like how we grow up looking at our bodies, trusting how our systems work, especially if doctors are telling us, no, that's not actually happening. And probably not intentionally, right? I doubt anyone intentionally was like trying to mislead you. But do you feel like there was that sense of hypervigilance? Like, do you feel like you grew up really trusting what was going on with your body or being worried a lot? Like, how was that for you? And do you feel like that kind of exacerbated the situation?
That's a really good question. So, I was always kind of more of a worrier in general as a kid.
Mhm.
Uh,
Mhm.
Very hyper aware of certain things, and also just I'm like a type A person. So that's just like that's my personality. That's how I came in onto this planet, is very like driven and almost perfectionist esque. So a lot of pressure on myself to do things a certain way. And that's kind of just my personality. That's how I was born. Now something interesting is that my father was actually a doctor. So he was an anesthesiologist. So I knew quite a bit about the medical world and medical system, had access to good doctors. My father, funny enough, though, um, and I don't know if this like built distrust in myself or just the medical world in general, but I did want to be a doctor like him. And he said, "Why do you want
Mhm.
to be a doctor?" And I said, "Well, I want to help people like feel healthy and feel good." He said, "Then don't be a doctor. It has nothing to do
Oh,
with."
oh no.
So And I know why he said that and what he meant because of the system that he was in, and
Yeah.
many doctors feel this way. But he meant like
I feel like he's an early
he was.
adopter to that notion, though.
He was, very much so.
Yeah.
So I kind of had this dichotomy of like, okay, do I trust the medical world? Do I trust myself? My mom was a bit of a hypochondriac, so it didn't help that my dad pushed away from a lot of medical intervention. My mom was like more antibiotics. So I had a lot of antibiotics as a kid with strep throat, which did not help my already probably prone system.
Yeah.
Um, so there was a lot of factors. And I think with all autoimmune stuff, it's like it's the environmental factors, the person's personality, it's in what they're adding on to all of that, with what they're intaking, their life stresses. It's kind of like compounds, right? And so that's certainly my situation. It's my character, environment, some childhood stuff, some trauma that definitely I hadn't looked at until really more recently. It is part of it. I think there can be like a sort of knee-jerk reaction to trauma when it comes to medical stuff. It's like, does that really sit in the body? And from my experience, like I think it actually does in some ways. This is how I feel. Like as a woman who wanted to just keep moving forward and doing things in the world, I swallowed a lot, sort of emotionally, and just held it. And it's really kind of interesting if you look at that and you think, well, where was all of my issues? It's like just sitting in my little gut. So,
Yeah. It's
just
fascinating.
sure.
Do you follow Gabor Mate's work?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I have one
what
of
does
his
he
cookbooks,
say?
Lipid Normal.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. That's
Mhm.
his newest one. I think it's really good. But um he has made a lot of comments about how it used to be much more equal between men and women in terms of percentage of autoimmunity and risk of autoimmunity. And now it's like women are like exponentially more likely to have autoimmune diseases. And he says, I think his quote is that it's because women have become the shock absorbers of society. We kind of take on, you know, the emotions of our children, of our spouses, of our colleagues, of our friends. Not every woman. I don't mean to stereotype or, go down that road, but it's super common, and I see a lot in terms of I think there's 2 super common, like you said, character types, personality types that I see, in autoimmunity. It's a lot of empaths and caregivers, and it's a lot of perfectionists, and it's a lot of overlap between the 2, like, very
Yes.
high achieving women typically, and very high achieving women that really, really care about others, often in the healthcare field, health coaches or nurses. There's a lot of, like, critical care nurses, pediatrics, hospice, like,
No.
caregivers for family members going through things. Like these are just super common patterns. Not saying if you're doing this, you're going to get autoimmunity. But like you said, I think it's a combination of some genetic predisposition, maybe some early stressors that you might learn to adapt to by like bearing the weight, so to speak, and still kind of showing up well, meaning like you're embodying that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's super, super common backdrop and fascinating. So I just always get curious about that. Also, I'm more curious about the like, okay, so you get the diagnosis, and unfortunately, yours came at a time when it was like, I like to say our body gives us like whispers and then it knocks a little louder and then it like shoves us off a cliff if we're like not, and not saying you were listening, you were trying, like, and it was
Listen.
this combination of factors that led to a lack of a diagnosis and intervention for you, but thank goodness you listened to your intuition when it mattered most, and you're like, "Something is wrong," and you saved your own life, right? And you saved your kid's mama's life, and it's so powerful. It brings tears to my eyes. That's so amazing, and I think what's so fascinating after that is, like, now there's this, like, vibrancy that, and vitality that you're living your life in a whole different way, and you're feeling really different, right, since that kind of pivot point. So, what do you think, if you had to pick, was the biggest shift you made from that moment, whether you consider that your rock bottom or not, like, but that moment of diagnosis of the intussusception and the ulcerative colitis, which all kinda came together and how you're doing now, it's drastically different night and day, right? Like, what was the biggest like, what were the biggest shifts? Because this is what people care so much about. They're like, how'd you get better? Like, how do you kinda take that control back? And I like to say with a lot of my patients is sometimes more of a surrender than a control. Um, sometimes more of a like letting go of the control. But just talk through that with me of like, how did you make that huge radical shift?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, there's so much to say right now, but so yes, to more of a surrender than anything else, because as someone who felt like if I wasn't controlling things, everything would fall apart, that kind of
Mm,
mode, I
mhm,
really had to surrender into the fact that my body did just go off of a cliff, essentially. And to give my husband some credit, I was, like, rolling around on the ground, and he's like, "You need to go to the hospital." And I was like, "Uh," and he's like, "If you don't go, I'm calling an ambulance." So I have to give him some credit for that, and thank God I listened. But, no, I kinda learned my lessons the hard way, and that's just how I learn. I hope, you know, every lesson that we learn is meant for us, right? So I can't say I hope that doesn't happen to someone else, because if it does and you learn from it, great. Um, I after waking up from that, rock bottom, I guess, I think I'd call it, I just like, I can't ignore my body anymore, and I have to give it 100% of what I'm able to give it to let it heal. And
mhm,
a lot of that meant, like, really stripping back a lot of the things that I was doing. I had to sell part of a business I was still involved in to really take a break. I hadn't If I look back, like, I really hadn't given myself a break at all since college. I mean, I was working, working, working. I dealt with a my father passed away in my 20s.
mm.
So
Sorry to hear that.
I mean, it's part of life, but, like, I never stopped. I got married, I had 2 kids, and I kept going and going and going. And I was lucky enough, and I recognize this, I was lucky enough to be able to actually really take a break and care for myself. So other than studying and being in this health coaching program, I stripped back a lot of things. And so just to give you a sense of like what my life looked like before and what it looks like now. So I was in constant fight or flight mode before, and I didn't even realize it. So I would get up and being like, okay, like I've gotta get up and I do a hard workout like right away. So that's usually how my day started. And it was almost like a punishment mode. Like I would go on a run and it was like really cold in Colorado. And then I'd get into work and I crush the day. Like that was sort of my mentality. And when I would eat, I'd be like eating at my desk, even though, in theory, I was eating healthy, I wasn't I've never been, like, a big fast food person, and I was moving my body. So this is something really important I think a lot of people don't realize. It's like, we all wanna check these boxes, and we think, "Okay, I've got all these hard workouts, and then I ate all this right food." But what is the state your body is in? What's your mental state? What is,
Mhm,
like, going on in your life, right? While you're doing all those things, how does your body feel? And I was literally putting more fuel and more fuel and more fuel on already inflamed body and not even allowing rest. So I had to completely surrender to the rest, which was a huge challenge for me, actually. But I didn't really have a choice. I really rested. So now, and even then, I would wake up and instead of thinking about, even when it took me a while before I could really exercise at all.
mhm,
Walks. That was it. No hardcore workouts, no running for like 5 miles or whatever. It was walks. And then it was like slower movement, like yoga. It was getting up and maybe going for a swim or what, like very slow. Everything slow. And I am a fast, fast, fast moving person. So I had to really slow down. And it took some patience and practice. And then in addition to that, I just did a ton of research about what can I remove from my life and my eating that is causing inflammation in my body. And I started to remove those things. I was a big coffee drinker. So I'd wake up, have my coffee, work out. Like, and people don't realize, like, so then you're taxing your adrenals and then you're you're pushing your body and like, where's the rest? Where's the rest?
Yes.
So to be fair, I really didn't, I didn't understand what I was doing, but to be fair, I didn't help myself. And I didn't really understand that for many years doing the things I was doing, you know?
Well, and to play devil's advocate, I'm sure that in the moment, that was actually a protective mechanism. That was actually an effort to help yourself. And that probably, if I had to guess, was a tactic that you learned young and worked really well for you. And you saw a lot of reward from in other areas of your life, probably your career, as an example. We're rewarded for a fast pace. We're rewarded for like high achievement. There's all these external rewards that happen with those things that then further kind of potentiates that loop of like the more you do, the safer you are, or the more you're loved, or like whatever those like really early pulls for why we behave the way we behave. We're then kind of like further rewarded for those things as we grow up, especially in our younger years, right? And usually we can get around it when we're younger. Like our systems can tolerate more of a beating when we're younger, right? And then it starts to become less and less able to like heal from more and more stressors. In functional medicine, we call this the allostatic load, but the overall like um load of stress that your system's under. I like to tell my patients like there's only so much stress that our cells can take, whether that's coming from emotional stress, poor sleep, alcohol, illness, inflammation, exercise. Like stress is neutral. It can be good in short bursts that we recover from. But meaning like hormesis or hermetic stressors, right? Those are like intentional small bursts of stress that then we adapt to and grow stronger. But like if you're not adapting, then it's just stress, right? And so I like to say, like, think of yourself as a daily battery life. Like, where are you starting? And are you filling that back up each night? Like, are you recovering as hard as you're pushing? Um, I have a very similar story with my lupus diagnosis. Before I was diagnosed, I was helping care. Like I had a very dear loved one that was very sick. I was in med school. I was working many hours a week. I was doing CrossFit all the time. Like I was just go, 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 and had always functioned really well. I also like did not know how to say no. Like the meaning of saying no to anyone for anything was like not in me. So just always pushing in every way and there for everyone, whether they ask for it or not, probably. And so just always kind of taking on and not refilling that up until my body was like, no, you're actually going to do this, or you're going to not be a doctor and you're not going to function well. I had a doctor tell me you're basically going to probably ultimately go on disability, be on meds for the rest of your life, and this is just going to get worse. And I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't, and it never made sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me, but it was a huge wake up call in that it forced me to take a good hard look at how I might have contributed, like what was in my control, right? The
Yeah.
genetics maybe weren't, but maybe that expression of those genetics were, which leads to where I am now and what I do now, right? Before my lupus diagnosis, I would have become a surgeon. I loved surgery. My pace would have never stopped. And now that was the reason why I didn't choose to do that. And now I think I'm exactly where I need to be, helping others understand this, helping other doctors understand this, which is so much fun. But like this whole slowing down thing is
Mhm.
like a huge challenge for people. And sometimes we just have to hit our pain point, like what sounds like happened to maybe the both of us. I like to hope that there's sometimes people can learn from maybe other stories and they don't have to hit quite such an extreme bottom to learn the lesson.
Yeah.
Um, but even still, it's kind of hard. I don't know if you've had experience this with your health coaching or if anything's ever hit home more for people, but it's a hard lesson to teach someone of like, what does that actually look like? Like, you know, it's because it's so much about the energy behind the choices you're making, right? Like you said, what state are you in? Like it can be the same food that you're eating, but are you doing it because you are restricting and you're trying to lose weight and you don't feel like you're worth eating and nourishing? Or like are you eating that same meal because like it's bringing you joy and you know it's nourishing your cells? Like same thing with exercise. Are you moving your body because your body deserves it and holy crap, you got to wake up today and go move your body and that's incredible? Or are you like, I put on a pound, this isn't okay, like I need to move, or I can't think straight when I take a pause, so I need to go move my body. Like these are very different states. And so Has there been a way to help people really like feel this change? Like have you gotten any luck or traction with that as a coach? Just like personally, I feel selfish that I'm asking this part of it because I work with this so much with people.
Yeah, so it's interesting, like, if you're working with someone, a lot of times they'll come to you and say, I've got this 10 pounds that I just can't lose," or "I go back and forth on this yo-yo diet," or whatever that might be. But if you start to ask more questions about, okay, to like, what's the why behind, um, why you want to lose the weight or why you wanna hit a certain goal? What is the why? And then you'll get, like, a surface answer, like, "Oh, I wanna look, good in this dress." Great. That's not gonna be the lasting change, but what's the why? And you kinda, like, dig in a little bit deeper, and you find out a lot more about people and what motivates them and, like, what the emotional attachment is to those things. So, with some people, it's like they had some stuff going on when they were younger, like eating disorders with their in a relationship with their mother. So everything we do has a lot more to like. There's a lot more to our motivations in life, right?
Mhm.
And I think if you can, you mentioned pain point, but it's if you can identify what is truly your why and what do you value, then the shifts can actually change. Because for me, for instance, before my why was like, I want to go hard and I want to be fit and I want to look a certain way. Um, my why changed a lot when I woke up from the hospital bed and I said, now my why is I want to be here to watch my kids grow up and to be a grandparent one day, I hope, and be
Mm.
around as long as possible and do good in the world. Like, I want to be the best version of myself, and live my purpose. That's a really powerful why. I mean, the other stuff, you hit those goals and then what? Like, that's great. Really, we all want to feel and be our best day to day in terms of health and well being so we can move through this world in an uninflamed state, right? And doing the best so we can. Like, that's a really powerful why. So, the punishment side of things, like, that's not, that's something else, right? That's not going to, when we're in a punishment state or a restrictive state and all those things, the why behind it isn't quite there. That's more of there's a value issue there about yourself. Like, you're not valuing yourself in a certain way, or you have a sense of value that is only there if you hit a goal, right? It's like, if I don't hit this, like, number on a scale, I'm not valuing myself. There's a lot that goes on behind the things that we do, and being mindful of it is huge. I had to look at a lot of stuff, but I just kept going back to, why do I wanna be healthy? I mean, we all have that choice, right? Like, everybody gets to live their life the way that they want to, and or say, like, "This is good enough for me. I feel, okay, but that's alright." For me, I personally was like, I need to be and feel my best so that I can show up in the world in the way that I want to, truly. And so with coaching, like, you just have to really get down to people's value systems. What do they truly value, and does that align with what they're doing day to day? And if not, it's pretty obvious, and there's usually some other things behind it. Um, and I've had to reassess how I value myself in the world. And if I have a slower day, that doesn't mean that I don't add value. So, there's a lot of those things that we have to look at when we're trying to heal our body or feel better.
Yeah, yeah. Before we jumped on the call, you reminded me of this as well. You were like, "I'm feeling so much better, but it's a moving." I don't know if you called it a moving target, or you're always. It's not always perfect, right? Like you're still having to
Not a
keep that in
linear path.
mind of
Yeah.
how to support your body. And I have an infant. Motherhood has been such a lesson in this for
Mhm.
me, and pregnancy and all these changes that my body's gone through. My son had a super complex health start to his sweet little life, and there's been like stressors, and it was such a reminder of like what makes you productive, right? Quote unquote, what makes you worthy. Like it, if all we did was wake up and like get some cuddles in and take a small walk outside, like it's perfect, And like, I have gotten over time. I also had to really dial back training when I got my diagnosis many, many years ago. And in the last few years, I've been able to like do Olympic weightlifting and work out however I want and run. And like, it's been great. And I've had this resiliency back to my body that right in this moment in time in this season, I have less of. And it's been a reminder that this is a moving target and it isn't linear, like you said. And there's times when I told you before the call, he's learning how to say mama, which is melting my heart. But like, sleep is a struggle as he learns each new skill, and on those days, I might have had a plan to work out, but, like, no, we go for a walk outside and we do something gentle because I'm not gonna overpush my body when it's been debited already when I wake up during the day. Like, it's not worth it to me, right? Like, I wanna like you said, I wanna show up for my kiddo. I wanna show up for myself. I wanna show up for my patients, and that reward isn't high enough, and honestly probably wouldn't be a reward. It would probably cause harm to push myself too hard in those moments. So I love what you're saying about like what is your why and really reframing it like that rather than how do you avoid the negative, but like what is motivating you here and how do you live your life in a way that aligns with that, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's super, super powerful. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to do you have I know this isn't like something you can give like a bullet point list on, but things that have really helped either your clients or yourself that can feel actionable and a little bit more concrete. Because sometimes when we talk about like slow down or remember your why, it can feel so if you're in the grips of feeling like you're just trying to survive and keep your head above the water and you're like, but I'm doing so much. Like, you know, are there some actionable, more concrete, simple, underline, double underline, triple underline, simple shifts that you feel like people could start with that could help at least bring some clarity to their focus that they can start getting on this path?
Absolutely. So, I am one of those people that I'm like, I want to see what are the measurable things I can do. Like, have these. Well, you got to be mindful, and you. Okay, yes, that's great, but let's put that into an actionable plan for you and your lifestyle. So everybody is different, right? So I'd want to see like what do you typically do in the morning? What time do you go to bed? What time do you wake up? And what is the cycle of your day? But here's some like high level bullet points. Because this is about lifestyle. This is not about a cleanse or a quick fix or anything. This is day to day that adds up over time that gets you hopefully where you want to be later in life, feeling pretty good. So I would always suggest go to bed around the same time or wake up around the same time and try to do that as often as you can and stick to that cycle because the body loves a rhythm. And then when you wake up, how I spend the first hour of my day really sets the tone for the rest of it. And by that, I mean, I wake up and the first thing that I do, I don't go onto my phone or anything like that. I've gotten into a ritual of dry brushing my body because I really want to move things through my lymphatic system and just kind of wake up my body. And it's also sort of just like signaling to myself, like, I don't have to jump out of bed and immediately, like, get a bunch of things done. I'm, like,
Yeah.
giving my body some attention, right? I'm
Yeah.
always right away hydrating with a lot of water, and, I personally like my hot water with a little bit of, Celtic sea salt, and I'll do that so I'm flushing, waking up my digestive tract, just taking that first hour really slow, actually, instead of
Okay.
jumping out of bed and immediately, like, getting into my task list and, like, taking my, cortisol levels through the roof. They're already high in the morning naturally. So just chill a little bit. If you can do something slow, I suggest that. It really sets the tone. Listen to something positive. Some people like to breathe, do some breath work, something like that. Move, stretch. I delay caffeine intake if and I don't drink coffee anymore, but I do like tea. I'm a big tea fan.
Okay.
Delayed caffeine is really helpful too for these stressor levels.
Okay.
Wait a bit. and then let your body wake up naturally. If you can delay that caffeine, wonderful. And then limit the amount of caffeine. Just those little things help with like ramping up the stress. And again, some people can handle a lot of caffeine, but a lot of people who have already a taxed system and they're exhausted and they're relying on caffeine, not a great idea, especially for a sensitive gut. So, and then throughout the day, like a lot of us talk about circadian rhythms, right? So we know about, the sun comes up and like our energy starts to go up. And then as the sun comes down, naturally our energy levels decline. But throughout the day, there's also ultradian rhythms, right? So it goes up and then it kind of levels up and goes up and it kind of levels. And that's the time of the day where a lot of us do want to grab like caffeine or sugar. And actually,
Mhm.
what I've trained myself to do and what's really helpful is if you feel that, if you can take 5 minutes and just sit down, which sounds insane. Like, why don't we have 5 minutes to just sit? But I know I didn't do this before. I sit a lot
Mhm.
more. Like, I move around a lot, but like, I will literally just stop and I will just sit down for 5 minutes and allow my body to have that moment to rest. It's
Mhm.
not a nap. I don't have time for that. But when I do that several times a day and I just literally just rest, I can get back up and, like, move around and feel pretty darn good. It's listening to those little signals, and this is an actionable thing you can do, and there's if you wanna pull it up, people can look at there's, like, a clock that shows you typical times in the day that you're gonna hit those walls. The other thing is eat whole foods. And try to cook at home as much as possible and find joy in that. And I know that just even the idea of that for some of us sounds stressful. It doesn't have to be. Okay, cooking healthy food, Instagram makes it look like you have to do something super elaborate. You don't. Just as simple as possible. Strip out the junk. Strip out the things that you can't even read on a label. Whole foods as much as possible. Everyone, depending on where their body's at, can handle certain things. So the mindfulness practice, all that really means is paying attention to how you feel after you eat certain things. And for me, my stomach, I have to be very careful about particular fiber. Too much fiber, I will actually have like another blockage. So I'm really careful about what I eat, how fast I eat. Put your fork down while you're in the middle of eating. Make sure you're stopping and paying attention to your food. Whole nutritious food, find joy in it. Just take a moment around food and look at it as something that's nourishing instead of, well, I can only have this. It's like I get to have this amazing meal. That's a big one too. And then learning how to say no. So that you look at so it's just like a business. When I talk to people, I'm like, if I was to do an audit of your business, do you need all these other subscriptions going on, or can we get rid of these things? Are these helping support your business? It's the same thing for your life and
Yeah.
how you feel.
Yeah, a yes to something is a no to something else, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So what's the trade-off? And looking at those things really clearly, like if I'm talking to someone, I want to know what does their day look like? What does their week look like? What does their month look like? And then we can identify, okay, these are things that may not be supporting the things that you say you actually value in your life.
Mhm.
And just
Mhm.
eliminating them. I've eliminated a lot of yeses, and, I do not feel that I'm restricted at all. I feel like I can move through my day, in a much more, joyful state because of that. Now those are just a few, like, actionable things that you can do, and that are simple. Like, those things are pretty simple. So, start your morning slower if you can, delayed caffeine, pay attention to your signals when you wanna sit down, or put your computer away. Don't sit and work, like, I mean, really just chill for a minute.
Yeah.
Say no more, eat whole foods, know what your body can and can't, handle. If you need to have the right labs to do that, follow it up with those things too. But most of us, and this is interesting, like I talk to people and they'll tell me that they're eating a certain way and they've done all this stuff. And then I ask them about their work, about their stresses, and they're immediately tense up and they're like, yeah, I have a lot of stress at work. And I'm like, well, and I get that. And we can't avoid stress. We want to have a resilient body so that we can handle those stresses. And it's like get back pushed off balance and you come back pretty quickly. But if somebody's already over here and there's all this stress and they're not addressing that or financial issues or anything like that, like they're gonna show up somewhere too. And
Mhm.
so you have to look at those things in an honest way and address them.
Yeah. Yeah, such good points. I love the concrete action steps that people can take. I feel like it can be hard when I share with people. I think it's like more about a surrender than a control. Like that's such an abstract thing because and then how do you take action on that, right? Like but sometimes if we take control in the smaller ways that do serve us, it can like relieve some of that greater need. And I don't know about you, but it's not like I recognize any of this emotionally immediately in myself. Hindsight was the winner there for me. I mean, I started with daily action steps that were really concrete. Like, and I didn't know anything was helping until all of a sudden I woke up one day and I could like turn my car on again because my hands worked. And I was like, oh, and then like a few weeks later, I could like walk more easily without joint pain. I didn't need a nap every single day. Like there were wins along the way, but it's not like it was some like magic moment where I'm like, oh, I'm going to change my outlook and everything's going to be different. Now I can recognize my outlook change over that period of time. And the general slowing down and the general surrender was the biggest impact. But it wasn't necessarily like even intentional in the moment. I think some intentionality there could have maybe expedited things. But like you said, we learn the lessons we need to learn, right? So I just think this is a great way if you're out there and you're like in the thick of it and you're like, not getting the answers you want and you're not feeling good and maybe you don't know what's wrong yet or maybe you do um you can't go wrong with some of these daily shifts even if you're already working with a rheumatologist or a gastroenterologist or whoever your ologist is for your autoimmune disease or whatever other chronic disease. These things pair well. Like these lifestyle changes that are going to serve your body are adjunctive to our current health model. They're not going to hurt anything you're doing. Obviously get advice from your practitioner and
Yeah.
that's what we're here for. But like simple lifestyle changes to support your body are typically helpful for adding on to, even if you need immunologic medications or surgery or something else, it's gonna probably serve you to slow down and add some of these daily habits in. And then over time, sometimes that slowing down can add clarity and give you a little bit clearer assessment and vision of kind of what that why is and how you're looking at things and how to move forward. And then you can uncover some of those deeper patterns like what we talked about. So super awesome. Thank you for everything you've shared. Allie has some really rad stuff going on with her documentary series she's creating. I'm sure she's so busy. She is a health coach. I don't know how much capacity she has to see anyone new right now, but she's doing some awesome stuff. I want to give her a second to let you know where that is and where you can find more about her. But I've so enjoyed getting to know you, Allie. I know everybody that's listening has as well. And let us know where we can find out more about you before we wrap up here, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. It's been really fun chatting with you. One thing I just do want to point out one more time is like, in addition to those things that I mentioned, if you feel something is off, advocate, advocate,
Yep.
advocate, and
Yep.
keep doing that. That's a big one. If there's a check engine light going on in your car, you got to take care of it because the engine will explode. So
And
yeah,
and find a practitioner who supports you in that
yep,
because they are out there. You may not have them right now, but I like to say I every day I'm trying to get closer to the kind of doctor I needed when I needed it the most, and I didn't have that at the moment. And I learned from it and it's fine, but, like, there are doctors out there that will help sort through this with you or health coaches or other clinicians, like, that will help sort through this with you, and if the answer is not super obvious, like, help find it over time. So, listen to your gut, like Allie
yes.
said.
Yeah, and I just because there's might be somebody out there listening who's, like, really not feeling well, and they feel like they don't know where to turn. Please keep asking questions, and don't be afraid to push and advocate for yourself. I just wanna say that real quick
Yeah.
because I needed to hear that in the past, and I didn't listen.
Yeah, totally.
And remember, like, these little things, like, 20 minutes a day of movement is, like, 7,300 minutes a year. Okay. And so it compounds over time. It really, really, these things compound over time. And then in terms of where to find me, you can find me on my website, which is alexandriaspursuit.com. I'm on Instagram, Alexandrias_pursuit. I'm launching a YouTube channel, which is going live tomorrow with some
Nice.
that's about the series that I'm filming. And that's really about an exploration for myself that I hope others can learn from, because I'm curious. I'm on this journey too to try to be the best version of myself possible. And then I'd love to help coach anyone that I can, and help guide them or be like their partner in crime to advocate for themselves and put some action steps into place for them. So you can find all that information on my website as well.
Great. Awesome. You
Yeah.
guys heard it here. This was so much fun. We talk a ton these days at Wild Health because we use data. We use precision medicine, right? And it's such a fun topic, and it helps a lot with autoimmunity as well. I use all that side of things with my autoimmune patients as well. But just getting a chance to kind of deeper dive into some of the emotional backdrop there and how powerful that is and how much it affects our nervous system and our inflammatory cascade and like everything else it cannot be underscored enough. Like I think it's more often than not the most powerful lever that can be pulled here. And not to say those other things don't matter, they do immensely. But in autoimmunity specifically, like I think it's one of the least talked about parts of it and one of the most powerful. So super cool conversation. I've enjoyed it dearly. And I look forward to catching up with you more, Ali.
Likewise. Thank you so
All
much,
right.
Amber.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to the Wild Health Podcast. If you want more daily health education, be sure to follow us on Instagram, which is filled with health optimization how-tos, grocery shopping lists, guided breathwork posts, myth debunking, and so much more. You can find us at Wild Health MD on Instagram.